It's just kind of who I am. I want to pour into my team as much as possible, and I'm pretty in tune with my body. I can read a room pretty well, and so when I see we're lacking a little bit, you got to step up. But if we're good, you're just there to encourage and give people.
Interview 1. There has been a major shakeup in the world of women's basketball, and surprisingly, it didn't happen on the court. The sports community was stunned when reports emerged that Caitlin Clark had officially agreed to a multi-year deal with NBC Universal to serve as a special contributor for its basketball coverage. This was far more significant than a rookie landing a routine endorsement. It represented a bold shift in the media landscape. Clark made it clear that she could remain one of the biggest names in sports without relying on the WNBA's approval or taking part in its newly launched Summer League. While the league responded with its usual cold silence, one player decided not to stay quiet. Before we continue, if you're enjoying this video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Surprisingly, more than 85% of the people watching still haven't subscribed. It costs nothing, takes only a moment, and truly helps support the channel. So, have you subscribed yet? If you have, thank you. We genuinely appreciate your support. Now, let's get back to the story. Phoenix Mercury guard Sophie Cunningham, who has frequently been cast as the villain in the ongoing Caitlin Clark narrative, appears to have grown tired of the act. Through several comments and actions that have largely been ignored by the mainstream media, Cunningham has openly called out the hypocrisy she believes is slowly tearing the league apart from within. She is exposing the internal politics, poor financial decisions, and jealousy that she believes are putting the sport's greatest success story at risk. To understand why Sophie Cunningham is losing patience, it's important to first recognize the significance of what Caitlin Clark has just achieved. 4 years, WNBA players have followed the same familiar path. The league's salaries have not been high enough for even its biggest stars to enjoy long-term financial security, forcing many to spend their off-seasons playing in countries such as Russia, Turkey, or China to earn additional income. More recently, others have felt pressured to participate in league-backed off-season competitions. Clark completely rejected that model. Instead, she secured a role with NBC, where she is set to appear on Sunday Night Football, Big Ten Saturday Night, and make her debut at Madison Square Garden. Rather than spending the off-season battling for loose balls in a basketball jersey, she has chosen a completely different route that places her in one of the biggest sports media platforms in the country. Instead of wearing a basketball uniform, she will be dressed in a blazer while sitting alongside legendary figures such as Carmelo Anthony and Vince Carter. No woman in professional basketball has ever reached this level of mainstream exposure so early in her career. Clark is no longer being presented solely as a WNBA star. She is being positioned alongside some of the biggest names in men's sports. At the same time, the silence from the WNBA's league office has been impossible to ignore. They understand that their influence over her is beginning to fade. According to many observers, Sophie Cunningham's comments are a direct response to that uneasy silence. The controversy has unfolded against the backdrop of the newly launched Unrivaled League. The 3-on-3 competition was co-founded by WNBA stars and Players Association leaders Breanna Stewart and Nafisa Collier. Reports claimed they aggressively pursued Clark, offering her a deal worth more than $1 million, including league equity and a contract package comparable to the one Lionel Messi received in Miami. Behind the scenes, the pressure to bring her into the league was reportedly intense. A narrative quickly emerged suggesting that Clark was turning her back on the sisterhood by choosing not to join. Many expected her to use her popularity and star power to help grow the new league and boost its success. When Clark instead chose NBC, members of the old guard reportedly viewed the decision with resentment. To them, it felt like a betrayal. But this is where the story begins to shift. Sophie Cunningham, having spent years in the league, sees the situation from a different perspective. Rather than viewing it as disloyalty, she recognizes it as a smart business move. Cunningham also understands that the Unrivaled League could present a potential conflict of interest, something that has raised questions behind the scenes. When active players are responsible for running a league while also encouraging other players to sign up, it creates an unusual and potentially uncomfortable power dynamic. By refusing to give in to that pressure, Clark showed that she could not be influenced or pressured into making a decision that did not suit her. Over the past year, the media has repeatedly tried to paint Caitlin Clark and Sophie Cunningham as bitter rivals. Clips of hard fouls, trash talk, and physical screens have been replayed over and over in an effort to portray Cunningham as the veteran enforcer determined to rough up the rookie. There is no denying that Sophie is a physical and aggressive competitor. That has always been part of her identity on the court. Away from the game, however, Cunningham has built a reputation as one of the WNBA's sharpest business-minded athletes. While several veterans spent their time criticizing Clark on podcasts or insisting that she was overrated, Cunningham stood out by remaining honest and offering a more balanced perspective. During the debate over charter flights, Cunningham openly admitted that Caitlin Clark was the main reason WNBA players were no longer flying commercially. She challenged the claim that the league's growth had happened on its own and made sure Clark received the recognition she deserved. Much of her recent frustration appears to stem from a league that is happy to benefit from the revenue and attention Clark generates while failing to give her the respect she has earned. Looking around the locker rooms, Cunningham's message is essentially, "Are you serious?" She sees the new television deals, the packed arenas, and the charter flights, and she understands exactly who has driven much of that progress. That is why her reaction to Clark's NBC announcement carries so much significance. The media has tried to portray Cunningham as someone driven by resentment, but the reality appears far more complicated than that. Many critics want Cunningham to say that Clark did not earn the NBC opportunity, but she refuses to play that role. Instead, her frustration is directed at the system and those who continue to criticize Clark. Cunningham understands that when Clark's profile grows, the entire league benefits as well. If Caitlin Clark becomes an even bigger media personality through NBC, more viewers are likely to tune into the WNBA once the season begins. In doing so, Cunningham is exposing what she sees as the short-sighted thinking of players driven by resentment. Her message is essentially, let her secure the opportunity because, in the end, we all benefit from it. That stance breaks away from the long-standing culture of silence among many veterans. WNBA players have often chosen to present a united front publicly, even when they disagree behind the scenes. By speaking in support of what she believes is the practical and sensible approach, Cunningham is challenging that unwritten code, making her position a rare and bold one within the league's close-knit culture. Let's take a closer look at how Cunningham has unintentionally exposed what many describe as the league's mean girl culture. Prominent figures such as Cheryl Swoops have been accused of using inaccurate statistics in attempts to diminish Clark's place in the record books. Fans also pointed to the awkward treatment surrounding the Team USA selection process, where Clark appeared to be left on the outside. According to this narrative, there has been a clear message aimed at her that says, "You don't belong with us." By accepting the NBC opportunity, however, Clark did far more than simply find another seat at the table. She created an entirely new stage for herself. Cunningham appears to be one of the few players who recognizes the irony in all of it. While others post cryptic messages on social media about loyalty, sacrifice, and hard work, Cunningham seems completely unfazed by Clark's success and continues living her life without resentment. Her reaction highlights just how small and unnecessary much of the league's ongoing drama has become. Frustration often stems from her refusal to jump on the anti-Clark bandwagon. She prefers to talk about basketball, discuss the business side of the sport, and focus on what truly matters. What she refuses to do is tear down the young player who has played such a major role in boosting the league's financial success. Right now, money is making the loudest statement, and Caitlin Clark is at the center of that conversation. That is why the financial reality behind Cunningham's comments deserves attention, as it appears to be one of the biggest sources of the resentment she has highlighted. The highest salaries in the WNBA are only around $250,000, and even opportunities in off-season leagues still require players to put their bodies on the line through intense competition and the constant risk of injury. Reports suggest that Clark's NBC agreement offers substantial financial rewards without requiring that same physical toll. Instead of battling through another off-season, she can build her personal brand from a television studio while analyzing the sport she loves. During the off-season, Clark reportedly earned millions without having to put her body through another demanding basketball schedule. To many, that is not a betrayal of the sport, it is a model for others to follow. Rather than criticizing her, Cunningham's message is essentially that other players should pay attention and learn from the opportunity Clark has created. At the same time, Cunningham has also touched on the more complicated side of the story. The unrivaled league was founded by the president and vice president of the WNBA Players Association, leading to speculation that star players faced significant political pressure to join in support of the union leadership's business venture. By choosing not to participate, Clark reportedly risked disappointing some of the union's most influential figures. It is a delicate situation. Cunningham, who has consistently shown herself to be an independent thinker, appears to view that arrangement as a potential conflict of interest. If union leaders are also operating as players' off-season employers, questions naturally arise about whether they can always act solely in the best interests of every player. She understands that Clark's decision to reject Unrivaled was about far more than just scheduling conflicts. From her perspective, it was ultimately about maintaining independence. Cunningham values that same sense of freedom. Throughout the year, there have been constant rumors and reports of divisions inside the league's locker rooms. On one side are the traditionalists who believe the league was better before Clark arrived, while on the other are Clark supporters, made up largely of younger players and business-minded veterans who recognize the bigger picture. Sophie Cunningham occupies a unique position within that divide. She is a seasoned veteran, respected for her toughness and firmly established within the league, yet she refuses to ignore what she sees. By speaking out, she disrupts the echo chamber that has developed behind closed doors. In interviews, she consistently refuses to fuel racial or generational tensions, making it harder for those hoping to see Clark fail to control the narrative. Cunningham continues to prove that a player can be fiercely competitive on the court without becoming resentful of it. She has also repeatedly challenged the media's portrayal of the situation. They post clips of a hard foul with no context and label them with headlines about bad blood. But if you watch what happens after the whistle, you'll see something different. Look at the conversations, the handshakes, and the mutual respect shared once the game is over. That respect has always been there. By pushing back against these narratives, Cunningham is taking control of her own image. She refuses to let the media use her as a pawn in its ongoing campaign against Clark. By declining to play the villain following Clark's NBC announcement, she completely disrupts the storyline they were hoping to create. Many expected her to be resentful over Clark landing such a high-profile media role. Instead, Cunningham has remained focused on herself and preparing for the upcoming season, which in many ways reinforces Clark's decision because true competitors recognize and respect greatness. For years, the WNBA has held most of the power, controlling exposure, scheduling, and disciplinary decisions. Sophie Cunningham understands the value of that influence because she has experienced league politics and controversial officiating throughout her own career. Her support for players having the freedom to maximize their value is completely in line with Clark's decision. What appears to frustrate Cunningham most is the expectation that players should simply fall in line and accept whatever the league decides. She represents the modern athlete, confident, independent, fashionable, and fully aware of her own value. Rather than feeling jealous, she seems encouraged by seeing Clark take advantage of the opportunities available to her. To Cunningham, it proves that players have more power than they often realize, provided they are willing to use it. At the same time, there is an issue that cannot be ignored. Much of the public discussion surrounding Clark has centered on race. Some have argued that her popularity is driven primarily by her demographic appeal, while others believe that much of the criticism and hostility directed toward her has racial undertones. However, by keeping her focus on basketball, Cunningham has consistently pushed back against narratives that attempt to frame everything through a racial lens. Through her comments, she repeatedly dismisses those divisive storylines. Rather than treating Clark as a political or cultural symbol, she simply views her as a basketball player. By ignoring the outside noise and concentrating on the game and the business behind it, Cunningham exposes what she believes is the misplaced obsession of critics focused on identity politics. Her priority is straightforward: to compete, succeed, and earn a living, and she sees Clark approaching her career with the same mindset. With Clark choosing not to participate, many are now questioning whether the unrivaled league has lost some of its appeal. The organizers are well aware of how much star power she brings, which is why her decision has sparked so much disappointment. Many believed Clark's presence would help secure television deals, increase ticket sales, and elevate the league's profile. Without her, the league faces a far greater challenge in establishing itself. Whenever Cunningham hears players criticizing Clark, it likely frustrates her because she knows many of those same people had hoped Clark would join their league and help increase its popularity, television value, and ultimately player earnings. To her, that contradiction represents the height of hypocrisy. The message seems to be, "Please help save our league, even if we refuse to appreciate you." Cunningham is far too perceptive to overlook that irony. As the next WNBA season approaches, the landscape has clearly changed. Clark will return to the Indiana Fever not only as a second-year point guard but also as an NBC basketball contributor backed by one of the world's largest media companies.